Hello, hey, I'm Dick TERMES. I have spent a number of years painting on spheres like this, and I wanted to just introduce myself a little bit by showing you one of my later pieces. If you can actually get inside that, you can see it's like a pretty real world. Especially if you get to see those people sitting around the table there. Anyway, I use like a 6-point perspective system to do these. A lot of times they aren't transparent, they're more opaque. And sometimes they're very geometrical, like this one, where it's has a certain type of geometry that I play with on the sphere. But that's the type of work I typically do. Today, though, I want to work with you to just give you a very fundamentals of what I have to think about when I go into my studio and work on this kind of stuff. And I'm going to, this has like 6-point perspective that I use. I want to show you how you can do kind of similar stuff with no perspective. So the first lesson I'm going to give you is playing with zero perspective, you might say. And so when I do perspective, or when I do drawing classes and stuff, a lot of times I work off of grids. And the grids are, the grid for this one is a rectangular shape like this. Okay, and the grid has one set of lines that run across like this. Looks like an American flag so far. Okay, and we'll have these grids for you. You can actually download the grid so you won't have to do the grid. But I just wanted to do them for you with this particular project. And another set of lines that you draw mostly cubical structures with would go straight up and down, just like the edge of the paper, the edge here, and the edge here is like these lines that are running across. And then another set that actually are a diagonal that run from corner, you might say from this corner to that corner, but all the way across the whole page. And that's kind of what I use in my mind. And when you begin this, I think it's a really good way to start learning how to draw cubical structures that maybe we're going to try and turn a cube into a really interesting building of some kind. And you can see how complicated it can actually get, but it's so simple to start with. So when we start with a cube, we have to think of the front of the cube, which I'm going to say is right here. And when I draw the square to start with from the cube, I don't have to use the lines. I can just be in between them or anywhere like that. But it sort of gives you a guide as to where you're locating yourself on this page. So that's the front plane of a cube, and you can see these lines are copying. If these were a number 1 up here, that would be a number 1 there. It'd be this parallel to those. These lines that run along the edge are copying these number 2 lines over here. So that would be a number 2 line. And then the third set that come off a cube go back in space, just like these lines do here. And this one copies that, goes back in space a certain amount. Down here the same way. Parallel, all these 3 are parallel to each other. They go back the same distance, and you know you'll have to have another number 1 line in the back here to complete the 1, and you'll have to have another 2. This would be a 2, this is a 2, and this would be your 3s. 3, 3, and 3. Okay? So now we have a cube laying in space, going back in space, and that's the beginning, that's the basis of a house. So if we were going to, and let's just say the first level of people that might be doing this, I'm going to do a little erasing here just so that it doesn't get quite so complicated. At least I'll open up my cube, see what it looks like so. And then I'm gonna just do a real simple one. I'll come back and do a variety of ways. You can tell if you're gonna put a roof on this, if you just cross from this corner across and that corner across, and then go straight up with that line, that could be where anywhere along that line you could have your roof come off of, from that point to this point. So that's your front of your roof, okay? You see that? It's kind of an interesting way to do the roof. Now the top of the roof has to be a number 3 line. So it has to copy these lines that go back in space like that. So you shoot that back like that. Copy this line, well, we'll just call it a 4 line or something. Copy that one back here from this corner right there. Now let's erase a little bit more. Well, actually, if that were the way it was drawn, this would come off of here to the back here too. You'd see a little bit of the back roof over on this side. I'm going to shade it in kind of darker. Okay, so let me erase a little, and I think you'll see the fundamental house there. That's a very simple little house drawn, and it'll look quite real. Okay, for those that want something simple to start with, let's just stick with this. That's your basic. I'm going to get rid of some of these numbers too. That's your basic house right there, without any perspective at all, remember. And then let's just think of the front. The front windows and doors, I'm going to put a door here, and doors should run parallel to the wall that the door is on. And this is the wall. You can see it runs this way and this way. So the door, in order to look like it fits in that space, has to run the same direction as the wall is running. Okay, and then a window, most windows are always the same height as the doors. They can be different dimension down, but there would be basically a window on the wall. And you might want another one back here. Now you have to look at the way the wall looks. See how this wall back here runs like that? Windows and doors have to run like that too. Okay? So if I'm going to put a window, I'm going to put 2 windows back here. I'm going to run straight up and down like the number 2s, but now I'm going to go back in space like the number 3 lines. Back like this, back down, and cut across. So that could be a window, a big window on that back wall. And another level to this, if you were interested, is to add depth to these. So the depth here would actually, I'm going to change colors here. The depth here would go back in space here, like a number 3 line, and come across, and you'd see depth on that side because you're looking in, you're looking down at this cube, so you'd see the top of the sill, and you're seeing the edge, this inside edge over here. So now the window would look something like this. Nice and straight on that side. If the door were open, the same thing would happen here. The depth would be there, would show up here, and show up there. So that would be the depth in there. Back here, the depth would come back across like this. You'd see the bottom, and you'd see this back side. So that would be how you would see the thickness of the walls of this house. Okay? All right. So that really is the beginning of constructing a house. Now, if you wanted to get more complex with it, there's a lot of things you can do. Like say you wanted to add on another wall out this direction. We'll just say we're gonna, that one doesn't seem to want to work, so I'll switch to this one. I'm gonna just take this window back out, and this is for some of you, if you're brand new at this, you might be happy just with that first little house, okay? And later I'll show you how we could add a landscape and all of that to it. But if you wanted to add another room out here, I'm going to just draw on here how big I want this next room to be. I want it to look about like that. That would be where it attaches to this first cubicle house. And then you come off in space this way. So we're adding an extra room on that's coming out here. I'm going to have it stop about right there. And this would go back in space here again, just like the first cube. So this copies all the 1, 2, 3 lines of the first cube that created that house. And then the back would look like this, and this would run like that. So that would be attaching it. Now I'm going to erase all of this so that you see what that cube looks like when it extends out from the other house. And then if we want to put a roof on that, do the same thing, put a cross on the front of this, and wherever that line, that point is, you can project that straight up, and it should kind of match this, the steepness of this one. So I'm going to stop it about there. So it'd run here and run over to that side. See how it attaches to the two outside edges? And then this line would come back straight, just like these lines here, until it hits this other roof. And where this comes up, this is going to be kind of complicated how that attaches. But I think what it would do is it would run up a little bit and then it would come on a corner. So that's kind of a guessing game as to how, because you've got two different roofs coming together. So you just want to look at that and see what you think it would be. Okay, what that angle would. Maybe it would be back in here a little bit more like that to make it look right. How it attaches to, there's two roofs coming together. So now you have an addition. You have your bedroom over to the side, right? And you might want to add windows and doors onto that. I'm going to add a window here. So now I have to match the window to that side right there. It has to be a miniature of that side. And then I'm going to put another window next to it. And it matches this window and that shape. So now we've got two. I'm going to just outline this a little bit in the same color. So you can see we've got an addition added onto the front. If you wanted another cube, let's see, where could we stick another one? I'm going to erase the front of this, and we'll have a little smaller one coming out into the front. So now we can add, let's think of a cube added on right here. This maybe will be like a porch. I'm thinking of it attaching to that wall, and it's that height. Now we have to just come outward. So these lines that we have, all of these, come this way if we want to come forward with this. Come forward with this one, come forward with that one. And I'm going to stop it about right there. Cut it, shoot it down, come off here. And you end up with a cube sticking out of that wall. I'm going to erase some of these lines that are in here so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. Now you can see there's a little addition added out here. I'm gonna just make this, turn this into a porch. So I'm going to add an extra line for the beam on the front, and then this will be just columns that run up and down. I'm going to erase this so that it looks like it's sticking out, and I'll put some columns back here too. So now you have a little porch sticking out there. And if you wanted, you could do the same thing, X across here, come up from here and down to there, You've got a little roof on that front of that, shoot it back, copy that line right there with this line back here, and this one across, copying this line, and you end up with a little porch. See how that works? But it's really fun because you could just go on and on and on. I mean, this doesn't even have, you know, complicated perspective or anything. I remember giving this assignment to a middle school kid years ago in Klamath Falls, and I came back and he had done a great big sheet that was like massively big, and it put so much detail into it that you just couldn't believe it. And he had little people and stuff like that, and that's something you can think about too when you do this, is you can add like a person. A lot of times I'll just start with a silhouette of a person because they're a little bit easier to draw silhouettes, and then later you can do more to it. But maybe one person there, another person over here that are standing there talking to each other, and you could go on and on. And then all of this could have a lot more detail. You could have a window up here that's a round window. You could have let's see, up on the top of this, I'm gonna add a chimney, but it could, I hope it doesn't mix you up, because what a chimney is, I'm gonna draw the top of it first, is just another cube going back in space, like that. But when it hits the roof, it has to copy this angle of the roof on that side because it's fitting into the roof, and you cut it off like so. So that would be a chimney added up on the top. Pretty fat chimney. It must have a great big stove inside, I guess. I don't know. Now let's just play a little bit with some background just to help you know how the background would work with this too. And the background, of course, doesn't really overly need the grid. Yeah, I mean, the grid really isn't for that. It's to construct the building. But then let's just think of this as the horizon back here, and we'll run it out this way, and then maybe some mountains in the background that run up. We're up in the Tetons in Wyoming, and then say up above that, maybe clouds that come off of this. And I always think of clouds just as fluffy guys like that. If they're separated, usually they're a little flatter on the bottom. And then you could have clouds up in here. I'm going to erase that part so you don't get mixed up with that. And then down below here, if this were a carport or something, the road might run out this way. Now it's going to run just like those number 3 lines. So it's going to run straight on out like this. And so this would maybe go back in there somewhere and cut across the bottom end of that. But that could run out this direction. And maybe there's a little sidewalk that's coming off of here that runs out here. And then say it turns and it comes back this way too. So that could be the sidewalk. Maybe in order to make it look a little more right, I'm going to put a little tree right here. That could be a little tree in that area, like a spruce tree of some kind. And maybe over here we might have some land that flows out like this with fluffy trees behind the ridge. Now you can easily, just with a few details, you can make it not look like clouds. You see how I did that? So you can get like a landscape here. I'll carry that on over here so that there's like a row of trees that are back behind this ridge. That's a real simple way to do that. And even if you wanted to get something very close to you, sometimes a stroke like that really comes off as plants, and maybe this sidewalk runs right into that, And then this could come across and maybe turn into a smooth little effect like so. But pretty soon you end up with kind of a fun little thing. And like I say, it's just learning how to stack cubes together and then also how to subtract cubes from cubes too. That's also very important. So this kind of gives you a hint, and kind of like you could come back in with some detail like this, putting the windows like so, maybe a little cross thing there, maybe this, so it kind of can go on and on and on. Maybe there could be a little planter across over here with flowers and stuff growing along that edge. You can spruce it all up. A row of little, means we have a little tree over here. I'm going to make that more like a spruce would look, and then add some back in here. And then with the little shading and color added to these, you can get it to be kind of cool. All right, so that's one of the basic ideas of how to do a house, and how to do it without even knowing anything about perspective. This really helps now when we get into my next lesson is going to be on 1-point perspective. So we'll do something similar, but we'll put it in perspective, and it'll maybe have a little bit more depth than this does. But it's amazing that, a lot of people, if you just can keep your lines organized to each other, the 3 sets of lines like we started off talking about. Now let me just redraw that for a second here and show you the 3 sets of lines. So you got one that's making the front of the square, and these are parallel, those 2 are parallel. And then the ones that project back in space are a set that are parallel to each other too. They're number 3s. And then copy this number 1 here for this back one, and the number 2 back here. And you have a basic cube. And that's all that you really had to know how to do in order to do this. That's why I think this is a pretty interesting thing. And then adding on, remember adding on to cubes onto cubes. If you were to add a cube out this direction off of this, you copy the same 3 sets of parallel lines. If you added one onto here, that's where it's going to be stuck on, and you project out. You use the same 3 sets of parallel lines, and even up above. I mean, if you wanted to make a tall skyscraper, just add on to the top of this. Say you were going to attach it right there. I always like to put glue down where it's going to be, and then project these lines up parallel to each other, just like these number 2 lines. Cut it off, going back in space like this with a number 3 line. Cut this across the front just like this number 1 line, and you end up with a very tall skyscraper almost building on the top of that. And maybe you just want to have it be cap it off there with a roof, a peaked roof, and you end up with a skyscraper. And if you put a bunch of windows in here, boom, 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 you can see that it would turn more into what a skyscraper would look like. All right, but have fun with this and see what you don't have to draw what I drew. Just make up your own stuff as you go along. But just the only thing that I really want you to think about are the 3 sets of parallel lines. If you keep track of that, you will be able to do a lot of really cool stuff. All right? Thank you. I'm glad you watched. Take care.